Right now, a significant portion of what you owe the IRS might not be actual tax. It's penalties. And here's what nobody tells you. The IRS has programs that allow those penalties to be removed entirely, thousands of dollars wiped off of your balance. But you have to ask. And most people never do because they don't know it's an option. I'm James Duff, licensed CPA, and in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what the IRS penalty abatement is, which type you might qualify for, and how to request it before you pay $1 more than you have to. Welcome back to Tax Problem Central. Here's something that should make you angry. The IRS charges penalties on top of the tax you owe. Then they charge interest on those penalties. So your balance grows not just because of what you owed initially, but because of the fees layered on top of fees. What the IRS does not advertise is that they have a formal program specifically designed to remove those penalties, if you know how to ask correctly. In 15 years of practice, I've had clients reduce their IRS balance by 20%, 30%, sometimes more, just from penalty abatement alone, before we even touched the underlying tax debt. Before we talk about removing them, let's understand what they are. The IRS charges several types of penalties. The most common ones my clients deal with are failure to file penalty. This is 5% of unpaid tax per month while you're late, up to 25% of the total balance. Secondly, failure to file penalty. This is 0.5 per month on unpaid tax up to 25%. This runs alongside your installment agreement if you have one. Now, did you notice the difference there? Failure to file penalty is 5%. Failure to pay penalty is 0.5%. That's 1/2 of 1%. Failure to file is much worse than failure to pay. Accuracy penalty. This is 20% of the underpayment if the IRS determines you understated your tax. Then there's estimated tax penalty, which is charged when you don't pay enough on your taxes throughout the year. Here's the math on why this matters. If you owe $50,000 in tax, the failure to file and failure to pay penalties alone can add up to $25,000 or more of your balance. That's real money, and it compounds because interest accrues on penalties too. There are 3 main ways the IRS will remove penalties. You need to know all 3 of these so that you know which one you may qualify for. Type 1, first-time penalty abatement. This is the most powerful and the most underused tool in tax resolution, in my opinion. If you have a clean compliance history, meaning you've filed on time and you've paid on time for 3 years before the year in question, the IRS will generally remove your penalties for that year automatically. No documentation required, no sob story, just clean prior history and a request. I have called the IRS and gotten thousands of dollars in penalties removed in a single phone call using first-time penalty abatement. It's straightforward if you qualify. The catch, you only get one, and most people waste it without realizing it or never use it at all. Type 2 is the reasonable cause abatement. If you don't qualify for the first-time abatement, or you want to remove penalties for multiple years, you can apply for a reasonable cause abatement. This requires you to demonstrate that you had a legitimate reason for failing to file or pay on time. The IRS considers serious illness or hospitalization, you or your immediate family members, natural disasters such as floods, fires, hurricanes, deaths in the immediate family, unavoidable absences like incarceration, military deployment, reliance on incorrect advice from a tax professional, or destruction of records. The key word here is reasonable. The IRS does not consider I forgot or I didn't have the money as reasonable cause on their own. You need demonstration, medical records, insurance claims, death certificates, whatever supports your situation. Type 3 is the statutory exception. This one applies in specific circumstances, usually when the IRS itself caused the delay or issued incorrect guidance. Less common, but worth knowing about. If you relied on IRS guidance that turned out to be wrong, or if there was a significant natural disaster that the IRS issued a special relief for, a statutory exception might apply. A client comes in to me owing $80,000 to the IRS. The breakdown is that the actual tax was $48,000, the failure to file penalty was $12,000, failure to pay penalty was $10,000, and the interest on all of that was $10,000. We filed for a first-time penalty abatement. The IRS removed $22,000 in penalties, nearly 30% of the entire balance, before we negotiated anything else. That changes the entire picture. It affects whether an offer and compromise is viable. It changes the payment plan amount. It changes everything. Penalty abatement is often the first thing I look at on any new case because it can dramatically reduce what we're working with. Here's exactly how to do it. For first-time penalty abatement, you call the IRS directly at 1-800-829-1040. Ask to speak with a representative about penalty abatement under the first-time penalty abatement policy. Have your tax history ready because they will verify your compliance record on the spot. You can also submit a written request, IRS Form 843, which is called the Claim of Refund and Request for Abatement. For reasonable cause, write a written request, either via Form 843 or a formal letter explaining your circumstances in detail and attaching supporting documentation. The more specific and documented your case is, the better your odds. But here's a critical warning. If you call the IRS yourself and they deny your request, that denial can be used against you in future appeals. If your case is complex, multiple years, large penalties, complicated circumstances, get a professional involved before you make that call. Okay, so what can go wrong? Penalty abatement sounds simple. In straightforward cases, it really is. But here's where people often make mistakes. Mistake number 1, requesting first-time penalty abatement without checking compliance history first. If you had a late filing or payment in the past 3 years, you'll be denied. And now you've used up your request. Mistake number 2, weak reasonable cause letters. Vague explanations without documentation get denied almost every single time. The IRS needs specifics and proof. Mistake number 3, requesting penalty abatement before getting into compliance. If you have unfiled tax returns or you're not current on payments, the IRS will deny your abatement request immediately. Mistake number 4, not appealing the denial. A first denial is not the end. The IRS Office of Appeals exists exactly for this reason. And approval rates at appeals are often higher than the initial request level. So here's the bottom line. If you have IRS penalties on your account, and most people with tax debt do, there is a real possibility that a significant portion of the balance can be removed before you pay a single dollar towards it. But you have to ask. And you have to ask correctly. If you want to find out whether you qualify for penalty abatement and which type fits your situation, call my office at 203-589-4077. You will deal directly with a CPA or an EA, not a call center, not an intake agent. Just straight answers. You can also visit dufftaxresolution.com, or if you like, email inquiry@dufftaxresolution.com. Subscribe if this helped you and share it with someone who's been staring at an IRS balance wondering why it keeps growing. Drop your questions in the comments. I read every one. Be sure to check out the next video where I break down IRS wage garnishment. Because if the IRS has already started taking your paycheck, there are steps you can take right now to stop it. I'll see you there.